Welcome back. The title of this mini lecture is A History of Cheer and Cheerleading. Let's get into it. So, we're going to talk about 5 themes or terms or things that, as you read more or learn more about this particular sport, that it can help provide some context or gateway again for future reading and learning. So the first term for us is sort of cheer culture. So concepts of cheer and cheerleading in America really grew as kind of an acculturated and formal process in the 1800s and into the early 1900s. Oftentimes, the culture of this was associated with the kind of the fan culture of football games in America, particularly collegiate football games. And it's important to note, of course, the gendered nature of a lot of this. So, of course, at this particular time in the 1800s, the individuals here are men, but that's a process that's going to change. So the culture of cheer, the idea of crowd work and engaging with crowds to generate additional excitement and engagement as a part of the sporting and gaming process. Now, that in and of itself is not new, right? It's not new at all. There's been really, really interesting work done on crowds in the Roman Forum, a couple thousand years ago. So, the idea of, sort of cheer culture or crowd work or crowd engagement culture, cheerleading is sort of a part of cheer and cheerleading is a part of that process. Now, during World War II, right? So during World War II, you're going to have millions and millions of men in America, something like at least 12 million people in the service, and many of these are men. And so as a result, and for the generation sort of after the war, you're going to have kind of a changeover in an association with the sport as being something that is mostly or often undertaken by women, but men are still going to be a part of it as well. And we eventually we need that discussion of many genders and things involved with a lot of this kind of as the years have gone on. In that changeover to the sport mostly being one undertaken by women, this is also one in which the discussions of professionalization or connection to professional sporting teams, I think is something that is important to do. So it's important for us to acknowledge that, in the aftermath of World War II, as you see the growth of the National Football League, as you're going to see the growth of the National Basketball Association, and in other settings as well, you're going to see the growth of cheer teams that are going to be hired and paid, or in some cases not paid, but as a part of the process of engagement, crowd engagement and culture, with those sports. So we've got early cheer culture, we've got connections to the professional game, right? That's our second professional game. That's our second point. Our third term or point for us here is national competitions. So when we're thinking the idea of cheer or cheerleading, we need to understand, in addition to teams and groups that might perform as a part of or connection with other national sporting events or games, that there are, of course, national competitions for cheerleaders at a number of levels that many will actively participate in. And this will be usually within the middle to high school age and also into college as well. Now, those are quite popular, and in some cases, for a number of years have been televised. So it's important for us to note that there's a sort of competitive cheer culture, with these competitions. Again, that's a part of this. The fourth point for us to acknowledge here is, so in the growth of cheer competitions and in the growth of women's athletics in the second half of the 20th century, the sad reality, of course, is you end up with a lot of biases, that existed against women at that time, and even certainly to today, which we don't validate. Um, but part of this conversation or question was the idea of, is cheerleading a sport? And of course it is. Because, if we look at the base definitions, the basic definitions of cheer, or of sporting, certainly cheerleading would meet this. So I'm going to quote from a definition from Cambridge here, which I think is, good for us in thinking about cheer and cheerleading. So, quote, a game, competition, or activity needing physical effort and skill that is played or done according to rules for enjoyment and or as a job, end quote. So if we look at even a basic definition of that, of course, cheer and cheerleading would be considered a sport. And the fifth term, or the fifth point for us here, is, of course, injury. Because in reality, for many of the young people and young women who are actively engaged in cheer and cheer culture, injuries, because this is such a physically involved process, are relatively common and are, of course, quite awful and horrific. So if you're someone who is actively involved in this sport and has a deep appreciation for it, maintaining good health is incredibly important. All right. Thank you very much.